Welcome to The Claw. I'm Eric Holtzclaw, Chief Strategist at Liger. The Claw is the marketing podcast for C-suite executives. I am joined today by Stefanie Beach. She is the founder and CEO of SMB Media Consulting. Stefanie, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, so tell me about SMB Consulting. What do you do on a daily basis?
So SMB Media Consulting is a full-service digital media consultancy. We work more like an agency, and we help brands achieve their revenue goals through digital advertising. So we offer services for search, social, programmatic, digital, SEO, email, data operations, and analytics to really ensure that the client's message and their goals are aligned across all of their media. So we help with strategy, media planning, implementation, activation, campaign management, optimization, and reporting. And then we also work with agencies on a white labeled basis, doing all of the same functions, but helping them with their understaffed teams.
Okay. It sounds like you do it's a very small thing that you work on.
Yeah, I guess. I think digital media as a whole, my primary background is in programmatic. So when I started out, it was really me and one ops person.
Yeah.
Just trying, to help businesses achieve their goals through programmatic media. And we naturally grew based off of what our clients' needs were. And so, I had one of my earlier clients was asking for search and social. And that was something that I was able to do, but I didn't feel like I was an expert in. So I brought people on board to kind of help me do that.
Yeah.
And then, they were like, hey, can you do technical operations? Can you help me with my data strategy? Can you implement our DSP? Or can you, switch over our ad server? And so I started bringing on a collection of really intelligent, really smart industry experts to help me do those things. And SMB kind of naturally just grew into what we are today.
Yeah, it's funny how, and that's the entrepreneurial story. So if a client comes to you, they have money and they do something that's adjacent, or they want you to do something that's adjacent to what you do, the answer is typically yes, I'll figure it out. Like that feels like a great way. Like what does your customer ask for you next as a way to determine the new service offering and how you can continue to provide value? Yeah.
It also helps them be cohesive with their messaging and their marketing.
Yeah. And so question for you on how you ended up in this space. So did you wake up at 5 years old and say, I really want to do this thing called digital advertising? Or was this, what was the path that got you to where you are?
It actually didn't exist it didn't even exist when I was in college. Programmatic wasn't a thing. And I do have a unique story because I did go to school for advertising. That was my major, which a lot of people don't necessarily work in what they went to school for unless you're like a teacher or a nurse or something.
Yeah.
So I did go to school for advertising with a minor in marketing. And honestly, I wanted to work in print magazines. I thought it was so glamorous and it was so fun. And I got an internship at a traditional agency, but in the digital arm of it. And this was back in the day where the biggest digital metric was CTR, click-through rate.
Right.
And after I graduated, they offered me a full-time role. I took it, and I tried to learn as much as I could there. And I quickly learned that digital was the way to go. And I should leave my hopes and dreams of magazines behind. And, because they were a traditional agency, they were giving a lot of the digital assets away for added value or proof of concept, things like that. And so I kind of felt like if this is where I really wanted to be, I needed to focus more on digital. So I moved over to a digital agency where I really feel like I've learned basically all of the traits that I have today. I learned customer management, client services, how to put a report together, how to handle a call, how to manage people. And then from there, I, took a leap into ad tech, and I worked at an ad server. And then I worked for Media Math at a DSP for 4 years. And then when Media Math was moving down to World Trade Center, I didn't want to go. And so I took a leap of faith and tried something new and went to an SSP and worked for PubMatic for about 2 years. they were going through some hard times. We had a couple of rounds of layoffs. I kind of got caught up in some of that along the way. And at that time, I also had my daughter. And I felt like I was missing out on a lot at home. I wanted to work, but I still wanted to be a mom and be home and, try to have it all. And I took some time off to figure out, what's my next step. And I decided that I wanted to work remotely 2 days a week. So I started freelancing while I looked for a job. And this was in 2017, the beginning of 2017, so before COVID. And no one would hire me that way. I interviewed for over a year. I turned down 3 jobs. And I was determined to be able to have some flexibility. And so I was trying to find a remote company, which many of them didn't exist. And, in the meantime, I was freelancing for different brands and small businesses, and I really enjoyed the impact I was having there. And when one project ended, another one just picked up. And my husband looked at me one day and was like, "Why don't you just consult full time?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's an option? Like, I could do that?" So I did, and instead of looking for a job, I started looking for clients. And then in 2018, I established an LLC, brought on an ops person to work with me, and then, evolved into what we are today.
So I love your analogy of becoming a consultant where you have multiple clients. I have a guy that I worked with, and he said, if you get a job and you get fired, you don't have any money. But if you go and find 5 clients and one of the clients fires you, you still have 4 clients. So it's a really kind of great way to look at it. When I was working and putting Liger together, it was another company, and I just did strategy, and I kept signing clients like you talked about, and ended up creating Liger by bringing an operational company in because I had 6 and 7 of them, and I had to figure out how to deliver them. That's a kind of an interesting thing to scale. So talk to me about the kinds of companies that you like to work with. Like is there a certain industry or category that you work in the most?
Not necessarily, which I like because it keeps things fun and interesting. We've worked with many different brands on both direct and with our agency partners. A lot of our direct brands are, from startup all the way to medium size. More of our agency partners are kind of enterprise, very large brands. We do have, I guess, maybe a little niche in like sustainable brands. We've worked with a lot of, eco-friendly, organic, sustainable brands. And we also have partners that help those brands stay true to their core values by running their media and serving their media in a sustainable way, which is really interesting and amazing. I went to like a green media summit earlier this year and was like completely blown away by all of the options that are out there to help, save the planet and save the earth and really help these brands kind of stay true to who they are through and through, not just with their products, but how they promote their products and how they advertise their products. And that really matters to a lot of people. So, we do have a little bit of a niche there, but we've worked in every category, retail, e-commerce, fintech, D2C brands, especially where they're trying to really reach their consumers, and, grow their brand, build loyalty. But really, my goal is to help other businesses achieve their goals.
Yeah.
We really pride ourselves on being very performance based. So, performance based marketing and hitting a CPA or an ROI. And our team is very senior. So everybody has held a director position or above before. And so it really allows us to know our stuff and know the ins and outs of whatever the platforms are that we're working on and help drive efficiency, be cost effective, and really shine when it comes to performance and hitting goals.
Yeah. And so as you start to work with clients, what's one of either the the myths that you often run into, or, some advice you wish that they knew before they engaged you, or something that you're always teaching them and talking to them about that is maybe something they've heard in general and is really not as true as expected or works differently? And what's the thing that Stefanie wishes people knew in the category you're in?
I do think that, agencies have a little bit of a negative connotation to them, right? I feel as though a lot of people feel like it's a black box. It's expensive, and you don't really know what you're getting. And with us, one of the reasons why I created S&B Media Consulting, aside from wanting some flexibility in my home life, was more so to really, do things differently. I don't like that everything's a black box.
Yeah.
So we're technology agnostic. We work in any platform our client wants us to work in. You've worked, if you've been in one DSP or SSP, you've kind of been in them all. You know what I mean? You've worked in a social platform. A lot of them are very similar. So we really kind of work with our clients, and if we bring the relationships on board, they own that relationship. So if anything happens with us, they have their setup, they have their data, they have all of their historical information, and they really feel empowered. We also look to teach them as we go. We really want to be an extension of their team and have them feel like they know exactly what's happening with their business and that they're empowered to make the decisions for their business with our guidance. So, a lot of times when we're working with people or new clients, they're like, oh, I've worked with so-and-so, or I've done this before, and, I'm not really sure this is for me. And it's a very different experience than working with a traditional agency.
Yeah, and it sounds like because we run into that, I call it post-traumatic marketing experiences, so PTME. And we run into those situations where companies, they can't get the history, so we don't have a starting point, or it does feel like they're not sure when things are going to come back and all that. So that transparency is really important along the way. And it's also sometimes difficult because you're in a category that the client doesn't always understand. So you're giving them transparency, but it's like if I go to my mechanic and they tell me something about my car, I'm like, I have no idea. I just need to crank it and it needs to run. But when you tell me that the alternator does the thing, whatever, right? So education along the way is really important to help them understand what's good and what's bad in the world.
Yeah, it really is. And a lot of what we do is education, especially on the programmatic front. While programmatic has been here for a while, and billions of dollars are going into it, there's still a lot of people that don't understand it or aren't sure how to use it and why. A lot of our smaller clients will start off with search and social. It's a little bit more DR focused, it's a little bit more bottom of funnel. They feel it's safe. And then as they start to see their return on their investment, we kind of guide them and grow them into other media. And really help them with their messaging. We also, one of the other things that differentiates us is that you have the same person through and through. So your social strategist is going to be your social media planner, your social activation person, your campaign manager. So if something they're setting up doesn't seem right, they're going to know and be like, wait a minute, why is this like this? Or, these results aren't making sense. Let me go back and see what's happening. So they're fully vested from beginning to end in what's happening in the business. We're not handing it off to 6 other people to get the thing done.
Nice. And so we're going to go to a commercial break. And when we get back, I want to talk a little bit about, you said in kind of part of this answer, people don't know what programmatic is or when to use it. So let's unpack that a little bit, because there is different language within this category and people confuse it, like what's what. Yeah. So let's get into that a little bit. So you're listening to The Claw. I'm Eric Holtzclaw, Chief Strategist at Liger. The Claw is the marketing podcast for C-suite executives. I'm talking today with Stefanie Beach. She is with S&B Media Consulting, and we'll be right back.
The Claw podcast is brought to you by Liger. Liger is a hybrid marketing firm combining a brand strategy consultancy and a production house that offers the full range of content and creative services. We can be your entire marketing department or your entire marketing department's favorite people to work with. we save the world from boring, broken marketing by putting businesses in brand therapy so they can express their most authentic, memorable selves. And then we share their story so they can be known. For more information, visit ligerpartners.com and follow us on our social media platforms.
And we're back. You're listening to The Claw. I'm Eric Holtzclaw, Chief Strategist at Liger. The Claw is the marketing podcast for C-suite executives. I'm talking today with Stefanie Beach. She is the founder and CEO of SMB Media Consulting. She lives in that category that is sometimes scary for people. They know how to do some of the, like building blogs and standing up that website, but now we have to start paying for traffic and getting in front of people. So Stefanie, you talked in the last segment a little bit about, programmatic and people being afraid of it. And so tell me about that. Like, what's the fear? How do you get around it? What are the things that people need to consider? And, is there a hierarchy? Some things seem safer, and then what is in this category, and how do I make sure I'm just not wasting my money?
Yeah, I think programmatic is a really great way to advertise digitally. It's efficient. It's highly targeted. You get immediate results or very close to real-time results, and you can action on that fairly quickly. I think there's so many players out there that it overwhelms clients. And it's not necessarily that maybe they don't understand the concept. Some of them don't. I think that's easier to explain. I think what really gets people nervous is, who do I work with? Why do I work with them? There's so many people out there that say that they do this better or they do that better. And a lot of them are the same. A lot of the same supply sources are plugged in. A lot of the same, built out algorithms are there. The same type of reporting is there. So it gets confusing. And then a lot of people are just like, I don't know what to do, so I'm not going to do anything. And that's kind of the worst thing you could do.
Yeah. It's I can't make a choice. I don't know. Yeah.
So I always like to, talk to my clients about, what are their goals? What are they trying to achieve? Who do they think their target audience is? And I say think because I cannot tell you how many times we run reporting and they know their audience and their products better than anybody. But there's always pockets and nuggets of information that we could extract that might give them an upper hand of reaching their audience in a way that maybe their competitors aren't. But they're so used to being like, well, this is my demographic, this is who I need to hit, and that's it. But if you're looking at that, what are their interests? Where are they on the internet? Where else can you hit them? And then what tools do you use to get there? And not all DSPs are created equal. Some are really great at retargeting. Some are really great at, pharma. So what we like to do is really get entrenched in our clients' business, understand their goals, their assets, their needs, their wants, and what an ideal scenario would be for them. And then do our best to kind of build within that and bring on the partners that make sense for them. And we explain why.
Yeah.
And that is really refreshing to a lot of our clients. It kind of helps them feel, like I said earlier, empowered and knowledgeable on something that they don't. Because a lot of people, especially climbing up the corporate ladder, feel intimidated by not knowing something.
Oh, yeah.
And, I don't know if it's ego or, I feel like I should know this or whatever it is, but they won't always ask questions either.
Right.
So I always try to be very high level. I always try to explain, use less acronyms because this industry is filled with them.
Filled with them, yes.
Or explain the acronyms, and then work with them to help them achieve their goals. And it's such a refreshing feeling for the client. And then they feel like, okay, I know this now. You're not making me feel stupid. And we're getting things done. We're hitting our goals. And that's a pretty powerful thing for a client.
Yeah.
So we really pride ourselves on being client obsessed, is what I like to say. And, working with them as closely as possible to just have them understand what's happening so that we build that trust and that knowledge internally where they're like, I know what's happening, I appreciate it, take it and run.
Yeah. And it's interesting because that runs into that post-traumatic marketing experience I talked about again a minute ago is, agencies that have a thing they do well, they start to sell the tactic first. So we're really good at this. And so this is the thing we think you should do versus looking at the business. So what does the business need? Where is the business headed? And then we put the tools and tactics on top of it. So, really diagnosing the business almost like a patient, and what are the pieces that need to work and what are the pieces that don't, and are we doing them in the right order? So you sound like you take a very strategic and holistic approach to how you consider that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I took a lot of what I've learned from my past experiences, as well as feedback from existing and past clients to try to fix what's broken in the industry. We're still very nimble and a small business, I would say, but we are really mighty and work really well and really efficiently with our partners and our clients, and they really enjoy it. We have a 98% renewal rate for a second contract and 95% for a third contract.
Nice.
So they enjoy working with us.
Yeah.
They love my people. I have, sometimes clients, come and go, and they'll move to another company and be like, hey, can we have so-and-so work on this? So that makes me feel I'm doing something right. If they're coming back, or they're moving to other companies, or they're referring us to sister companies, or, other people in the industry, or even coming in and requesting who they want to work with. Sometimes it's not possible if they're assigned to something, but, I do my best to really accommodate our clients, and I'm personally involved in everything. We have relationship meetings every month with, the heads of the business as well as the day-to-day people, and really kind of ensure that everybody is happy and getting what they want. And, I also understand that scope evolves and changes, right? So we're not really sticklers of, oh, this isn't in scope, or, you didn't have that in your W. It's like, let's talk about what we're doing now and how our needs change and evolve towards that.
Yeah.
Maybe we're not doing so much setup, but we're doing more analytics, and that's okay. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna nickel and dime you for every little thing that we're doing, but we are going to evolve with you and grow with you and make sure that you're happy every step of the way.
Nice. And so future, what are you seeing from a trend perspective? Maybe things people are doing today that may not be what we're doing a year from now, or something that people still double down on, companies are double downing on, and you're like, don't do that anymore.
I do think that there's a lot of things that have changed, and I think especially in our industry, so much changes year over year, which is what makes it fun and interesting, but also makes it very confusing for those that aren't used to that. Even when I worked at in corporate, or at other agencies and businesses, how many times a year do we have a reorg? You know what I mean?
Right.
It was all the time. So I think the rise of AI is really big. I think people are using that to help drive efficiencies, help drive everyday tasks to be a little bit more automated. I think people are really scared of that, but in our industry, it's always been there. It's just now at our fingertips.
Yeah.
If you think about the algorithms, natural language processing, all of the reporting that we have, all of things like that, that's all done by some sort of AI, Now, instead of the engineers using it, we're able to use it.
Right.
It makes it a little bit more dangerous. But I think these retail networks, are a big thing. They didn't exist a couple of years ago, and a lot of companies are trying to sell ads differently, or come out with new formats and new flashy ways to do things. I think that what people shouldn't do actually is just chase the trends. Not every trend is made for every business.
Right. Yep. No, that's so smart.
And it might be really cool and shiny, but maybe it's not for you, and that's
maybe
okay.
Your company shouldn't be on TikTok, right?
Maybe. Right.
Yeah.
Especially if your audience isn't there, or you don't have short form video that makes sense for it. There's no need for that.
Mm-hmm.
Your dollars are better spent somewhere else, where you will thrive. And it's okay to not be the first to adopt something either.
Yeah.
I think that that's a thing too. You know, a lot of brands and clients will sometimes try to be the first because they think it's innovative or because they think they should be there. And it's not really sticking true to their strategy or their values or their purpose and what they're looking to achieve. And then everything starts to crumble.
Very, very good. Well, so how do people find you to get all of this goodness that you put together for companies? What's the best way to get in touch?
I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, Stefanie Beach. You can find me, Stephanie with an F. You could email me, stephanie@smbmediaconsulting.com, or go to our website, smbmediaconsulting.com. We have lots of resources there. But yeah, you could find me in any of those three places.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much for joining me on the call today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It was very fun. Thank you again.
So you've been listening to The Claw. I'm Eric Holtzclaw, Chief Strategist at Liger. The Claw is the marketing podcast for C-suite executives. We've been talking today with Stefanie Beach. She's with SMB Media Consulting. All things performance management, which is one of those categories companies often don't quite know how to walk into. So you need an expert to help guide you. Thanks so much for tuning in.